Good evening, I am your anchor, Bran Handsome, and tonight we bring you another special episode of Dead by Daylight News. This time, we have a PTB for new survivor, Orela Rose, which focuses on altruistic perks that aid the team. These perks are going to be excellent additions for the game for seeking help.
Perks are OP and the perks must be nerfed or else Killer is going to be the first role in the game for years. Absolutely not.
Hey, my producer is informing me that these perks, in fact, are not helpful and not healthy for the game. In fact, they'll make the killer role worse in the game for years to come. Yeah, okay, I guess we'll, I think we'll just move on from that. Speaking of new changes, Kaneki, who is somebody who's a very controversial killer when it comes to their release, is actually getting changes that are undocumented in this PTB, including breaking a pallet reduces a token from their power. The controversial auto aim has been reduced and the range of the leap has been shortened. This makes the character more healthy to play as and against.
I can't believe they gutted this fucking killer. He was perfectly fine with zero issues. The balanced team of behavior on vacation because this is a fucking joke. This character is unplayable and awful now. Awful behavior.
Well, my passionate producer has informed me that, again, apparently these changes are unacceptable and everything is awful, and the game is going to end soon because these changes are just unacceptable. So, in other news, the haste and hindered status effect can no longer be stacked. This is part of a greater plan from Behavior to try and open up perk design possibilities without worrying about having to design around strict balance limitations and...
Haste and hinder not stacking. Don't even get me started. I can't believe...
You know what? We are trying to do honest reporting here. You can't just crash out at the slightest thing you don't like and change the script to fix it. Not every piece of news is going to be the end of the world, and you're gonna try to report slop just because you're mad about it? You know what? Be my guest. You report. See, you don't need the notes. You're changing them every 2 seconds. Figure it out yourself. Enjoy your new anchor position. POV. If new station producers were Dead by Daylight players. Hi guys, Bran here, and welcome to another video. Despite the beginning of this video having an intro, I do think that this video is going to turn out to be more of a rant video at the end of the day, because I've been trying out the PTB for the upcoming 8.7.0 patch, and it was really fun and really interesting. But you wouldn't have been able to tell that with how much negativity I was getting before, during, and after the stream where I was actually trying out those changes. And after a bit of thinking, I've realized that this happens just about every time there's a PTB or a new chapter release of some sort, that there are people who just absolutely crash out over everything and anything. So this video is just going to be a honest ventilation of just my complicated feelings about big changes in Dead by Daylight and my issues with people handling these said changes. We'll also be going over some of the changes in the PTB, so think of this as kind of like a dual video between how I feel about the PTB versus also me just doing a rant as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. We'll start with today, because based on a lot of people's opinions on Twitter, stream, mine, and others, I would have assumed this upcoming chapter would have been a massive L. People on Twitter talked up that Orela's perks were not worth running outside of Duty of Care, the one that gives haste for every body block hit while you're healthy, and the rest were absolute dog water, chopping her up and her perks to nothing more than a nothing burger. In addition, I heard a lot of the killer changes were also abysmal and ultimately a step in the wrong direction, specifically naming one very controversial killer that we've talked about before, good old Kaneki. So I go on today to test out this supposed L chapter, and surprisingly I had fun basically every single match I played and found almost everything in the chapter to ultimately be healthy, if not just needing some very minor changes in order to be healthy. Do No Harm, the perk that heals faster based on hook stages, great altruistic perk. Duty of Care, while really good, probably just needs some number changes to make the haste not as crazy, but otherwise a very good anti-tunnel perk to run to help protect people who are getting tunneled on your team. Also, this is one I can see like a 4-man on comms very much abusing if they actually get some good value out of it, so maybe some number changes here or there will make that less possible. Rapid Response, which is her last perk, despite being accused of being useless, is actually really fun when paired with exhaustion perks. I personally ran it with Dramaturgy, and it kind of gave me this weird kind of like check-in on the killer whenever I have Dramaturgy active gameplay, where I could just see where the killer was, almost like more of a very short on-demand Kindred, which was actually really awesome. I think to make it universally helpful, you should make the ore reading a little bit more than 2 seconds. That way if somebody's running it by itself, it's basically not almost useless. This is not at all the train wreck that it was being prophesized to be, both in and out of stream. And despite this, there were people who were in stream that still detested the perks despite watching them be more helpful and not strong or unhealthy in live time. This got even worse when I got around to actually trying the very controversial killer, Kaneki. Like the skit at the beginning explained, Kaneki got a few nerfs that served to try and bring him in line with other killers. What I had heard both on Twitter before stream and on stream actively before I tried them was that these changes gutted the killer, or at the very least made him a slog to play. Ergo, kind of just like implying that he was just no longer playable. Like, they fundamentally missed with the Kaneki changes and they just made him worse overall. Yet when I actually got around to playing them, I found them to be actually kind of refreshing. The reduced auto aim actually made getting your first hit actually take a level of skill. Whoa, that's kind of crazy. Unless like you're just like cheesing an auto aim hit. And the token debuff for kicking a pallet didn't really seem to impact a lot of my chases. I didn't really notice it even happening too much. And he still has arguably his strongest ability other than the auto aim hit, that being the enraged vault that essentially serves as Mangled Scamper 2.0 from the original Chucky. The only thing that was kind of awkward that I kind of didn't like was the range nerf on the leap, because there were sometimes I'd go to point at something that was very, very clearly like vaguely close to me, and I still wouldn't have the ability to latch onto it to leap forward. I think that could be probably adjusted a little bit back in the other direction, because it did just feel really awkward to have something vaguely close to me that my tentacles could probably reach and touch, but it just wouldn't for some reason. But that was like literally the only thing about it. I was like, that's kind of awkward. That's kind of weird. Other than that, the character felt mostly the same, just with some changes that would improve the player experience to play as and against. And despite this, even while I was actively doing well and doing almost everything you could do with pre-patch Kaneki, people were still lamenting the oncoming changes and claiming behavior had messed up the character, and it was like I was living in a completely different world than the people I had heard talk about this before, during, and after stream. I generally was put off by this because it felt like we were just getting two entirely different wavelengths. So it got me thinking. I've noticed that a lot of people who do this, who all will remain nameless of course, over the course of patch to patch, generally always seem to have some sort of bone to pick with behavior and doom and gloom about something from most patches that release. Even if 99% of the community seems to agree that an upcoming patch, content, whatever it happens to be, is good for the game health or improves the game in some sort of fun or awesome way overall, there seems to be people who always find something to get up in arms about and act like it's the end of days. Are there absolutely awful changes that are proposed that we should definitely be upset about? Yeah, of course. Happened to me recently. They tried to put my character into bottom 10, despite them only being a B tier killer. Trust me, if anybody gets that more than anybody, it's me. Well, not more than anybody, because, you know, there's Skull Merchant and Trickster and some of you Chucky mains. Okay, almost more than anybody. Almost. But based on how some people act, it's almost as if every single patch that behavior ever puts out is poor quality and shifting the game towards a negative direction, which is just like not true at all. And if you only agree that patches are just not for you, or at the best just mid, that's not a steaming pile of shit that some people always seem to insist that every single patch is. Which generally confused me on why so many DBD players just insist that every single change is going to rock the game in a terrible way, and every single one of these updates, whether it be P2P, hotfix, or chapter release, it's always going to ruin everything. And it's gotta be extremely exhausting to feel so downtrodden all the time and in peril all the time every time there's game changes, because it sure does feel exhausting to listen to you doom and gloom every single time the wind changes in the game. And this is where I'm going to sit you down for a little bit and try to be real with you. This is a live service game. Live service games forgo the usual cycle of games, which is to make good game, make money, make sequel, make money, make another sequel, maybe make spin-offs, so on and so forth. Live service games make one big game, and that big game receives consistent new content that makes the game feel fresh for years and years. For example, if we're looking at something like the Halo series, instead of doing Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, Halo Reach, Halo DST, they would just do Halo Online and then just run it for the entire duration of all those games' release cycles, which is weird, by the way, because I found out that that almost happened about 10 years ago, so didn't know that before this video. My point being is that if you are afraid of change, if you look upon change with disdain, disgust, distrust, or fear, I think you're playing the wrong kind of game, friend, because Dead by Daylight is a live service game. meaning that from beginning to whenever its life cycle inevitably ends, it's going to change over and over and over and over again. Metas are going to shift, perks are going to change, maps are going to change, characters are going to change. And this is all because it is a live service game. Adding and revisiting content is how a live service game continues to live on with only one title. This is just part of the average cycle for any game that is like this. And despite an aversion to a constantly changing game with new or revised content, there are people out there who always seem to panic or crash out whenever new content is released or changed. And it just makes me scratch my head, because if you really hate change that much, why not stick to traditional games that just do sequels and spin-offs? That way we say if like a new game, a new sequel comes out to a series you like and you don't end up liking it, you can just always go back to the original and play the original. Live service games are just going to chew you up and spit you out, because the nature of the cycle of these games is to add new things and to change it frequently. You can't go back to old DVD. Well, you can. It's just very complicated. The company doesn't make it readily available to go back to old DVD whenever you want, or much less have players to go out there and play with it. So if you're expecting to always want to go back to a part of DVD that you enjoy and always go through that, that's not available. The game is constantly moving forward, constantly introducing new changes, new characters, new content. If you don't like change, this isn't for you. This video is already pretty long, but as an aside, I did want to say that it's really strange in the big year of our Lord 2025 that people are still ride or die for the whole side versus side thing, survivor remains versus killer remains. I'm just confused, because I just don't understand how something so corny and clearly not good for the game's health or longevity has continued to ironically be brought into these situations and conversations years and years and years later. The reason I bring this up is because I think it brings a lot of bad faith, doom and gloom perspectives into every new change or new content drop that comes in the game. I mean, a perfect example of this is someone who got changes this PTB, that being good old Kaneki. Kaneki, by some killer mains, was touted as someone who had no flaws, and survivors just needed to get good or learn to play better in order to overcome just how strong he was, which was a completely gross simplification of the state of the character. On the flip side, there were survivor mains that would in bad faith say the character just needed to be gutted like Skull Merchant. No, I'm not kidding or using a exaggeration for entertainment purposes. I heard that multiple times, that Kaneki apparently deserved to be gutted like Skull Merchant. And yes, I did do my research on these players, and yes, they tried to hold W away from loops instead of just looping them, which is like one of the only things you can do against this character other than running perks specifically made to counter them. My point being is that neither of these perspectives tells the whole truth about the character, and yet so many people swore to it. And well, it's because of their bias, because of their tribalism. And neither of these solutions, if they were actually implemented tomorrow, would help the health of the game in any way. And these are the perspectives that often come out the loudest on new PTB or chapter release days. People swearing that under no circumstances should survivors have access to the kind of perks Orela has coming out. The changes to Kaneki, despite being minor, have somehow gutted the character and made them feel no longer worth playing, or made them feel like garbage to play like. Is something I did not experience literally at all. These ultra biased takes just really make my head spin. Like, I used to be of the opinion to just kind of like let diehard killer mains be over there and do their thing. Let biased survivor mains go over there and do their thing. Just let them be in their own little echo chambers. Don't let them have any self-reflection. They have chosen not to understand the game as it is and just kind of do their own thing, right? Not really any of my business. I'm in the business of trying to stay happy, positive, and honest about the things that are happening. I'm trying to move forward in a productive way, no matter the truth of what's happening. I'm trying to, if it's bad or it's good, turn it into something productive. But realistically, the more the game goes on, I realize that these kind of perspectives actively harm game over health overall, because they just want to live in a world where they can have their cake and eat it too. There's so many people that try to dress up their super biased killer takes or their super biased survivor takes as for the betterment of the game. No, honey, it's for the betterment of you. And it takes two to tango in Dead by Daylight, survivors and killers. So if you listen to any of these very heated, very biased takes, the game would have died literally years ago. If I think I had something productive to say at the end of all of this, at the end of this video, it'd be this. If you are extremely upset and crashing out over something that has been added to, whether that be new content, something that's changed, something you're lamenting, like, oh, I can't believe they did this. How did they think it was a good change? The game is dying now because I can't believe they did this. Stop, look around, and communicate. Talk to other people. No, not in your own echo chambers, because they're just going to repeat the same thing at you. Go outside of your usual perspectives and see what the whole community is saying. Whether it be new content or big changes coming out, I usually go to a survivor main streamer stream, a killer main streamer stream, and then to somebody who usually plays both to end off. Why? Because it gives me all three perspectives, and through that, it gives me a general sense of what's going on, and I can see through the bias that exists in the community. I then combine that with my own personal experience when I actually go in and test these things, and voila, it all comes together. So generally, just try to examine if your extreme claims, feelings, emotions are justified, or if they're just in the moment of circumstance. There's been plenty of times in my life that something seemed frustrating or annoying at first, and actually ended up being like totally fine at the end of everything. Emotions are a reaction to something that's happened, not the truth of something that has happened. I would be keen to remember that. So that is my long-winded rant of how it's often exhausting to be in the community on the day 1 or 2 of the new content or changes, because often the community goes straight to negativity, doom and gloom, and etc. And furthermore, I think this issue is severely agitated by the fact that somehow in the year of 2025, survivors and killer mains, this thing has just somehow not died despite the game being 9 years old. That's a lot to hold on to for a very long time. Now, this doesn't only come off as extremely fucking corny and ruins a lot of community interactions, but also makes it extremely hard to make sense of new material, as there's too much bias and heated emotions floating around from it as a result. But what do you think? Do you think new content changes are hard to reach straight because of bias and doomers, or do you think that there's something else influencing that? Let me know down in the comments below on that. It's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Hopefully I made your day a little bit better today, but if I did not, I have the chance to do so again in the next video. But if I don't see you there, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.